Welcome to Dr. Lottie's Science with Soul. I am Dr. Lottie and the host of this podcast. Today, I am really excited to introduce Courtney Dawson, who is an evidential psychic medium and has also studied at Arthur Findlay College in England. Courtney is a compassionate and inspiring professional working medium and ordained spiritual minister. With her training at the esteemed Arthur Findlay College in Stansted, England, and by mentoring with renowned international medium Tony Stockwell, Courtney is incredibly experienced. Her knowledge has been further enhanced by gaining her spiritual life coaching certification from the celebrated medium James Van Praagh and her Usui Reiki Level 2 certification. Working with clients from all corners of the world, Courtney's love-filled energy and strong connection to the spirit world make her a popular go-to for spirit messages and for spiritual guidance. Above all of that, her goal remains simple: to support her clients with accurate guidance and give evidential, heart-centered messages. She has appeared on several podcasts and shares her expertise so others can feel seen and confident in their own experiences. Courtney is also the host of the Connected Spirit podcast. So welcome, Courtney. I'm so honored to have you as a guest today.
Thank you for having me on the show, Dr. Lottie. It's nice to be on the other end because you were on my show and really enjoyed our time together.
Yeah, I can't wait to have you be the guest and answer questions. So let's just jump right into it.
Okay.
What got you interested in mediumship and at what age?
I'm not sure if I was ever really interested in mediumship per se. To be honest, it was something that I actually ran from, not figuratively. Yeah, figuratively, sometimes literally. Ever since I was young, I actually didn't want to deal with it. By my early 30s, I had an experience where I just was faced with there's always an option, but I felt I was really faced with my truth that I had these mediumistic powers of awareness and that it was the right time in my life to embrace them, to discover them, to understand them. And by doing that, it has helped me remove so much fear of the unknown, fear of these abilities, and to really recognize that those souls from the other world that gather close who I would sense or see, they're not there to hurt me, they're not there to bother me, but very much the opposite. They're there to guide and support me in my life and in my work now as a professional medium. It was this interesting event where I had some friends who had recently lost a brother, and they went to, at the time, I didn't know it was a spiritualist church, but they said they went to this church in Surrey. And there was a bunch of mediums on a stage giving messages. I thought, kind of what kind of show are you guys going to? What kind of people? Honestly, I thought the people would be crazy. But then there was this very, very strong voice within and said, you need to go check it out. And I was really nervous about it. And over about 9 months, it just got stronger and stronger and stronger to the point I had to go, but I didn't know the name of the place. And I was honestly a little too embarrassed to even talk to my friends about it and say, hey, where'd you go? So some Googling I did and found a spiritual center, a spiritualist center, I should say. And I went there for a message night and dragged a girlfriend along with me. And then it was just like the floodgates opened and I couldn't turn back. I had this incredible experience of seeing this man in the spirit world objectively. And he was following this lady and her daughter, and then he's talking to me because I can see him and I'm freaking out, right? And what's going on? And why is this happening tonight? Why? A series of events happened where he kept talking to me saying, my daughter and my granddaughter need to have a message for me. Can you please talk to them? And I, at that point, actually thought I was losing my mind. And I'm not exaggerating. I actually thought I was losing my mind because I hadn't had an experience that clear since I was, well, maybe in primary school. And we did the message night, attended, and they never got their message. But he said, there's a message. for them from me. They need it. Oh my goodness. So I said, well, I'm leaving. It's the end of the night. Yeah, no, we're good. He said, please, please. And I said, well, if they cross the side of the street that I am, I'll give them the message. Then they did. And I thought, oh my God, I can't do this. If they park beside me, I will. Not only did the vehicle that they were going to, was it parked beside me, it was the same make and model and color. And the lady had pressed the little button on her key, you know, those auto start cars, and the lights went on, and that's how I knew it was her car. And I just said, oh my God, okay, I'm just going to do this. Hi, I'm so sorry to bother you. I'm Courtney. I don't know what's happening, but I have this very very adamant gentleman who would like to speak to you. Do you mind if I share what he'd like to say with you? And she said, oh yeah, absolutely. So I told her who he was, brought through a bunch of evidence, and shared the message. And it was her dad, the young girl's grandfather, so grandpa coming through, and gave the message, and it was exactly what they needed. And it was like all of the pieces of my life just kind of fell into place, and there was this understanding of the experiences that I'd had my whole life and just didn't know what the heck was going on. And then from that point on, I decided there's no going back. I know what I'm supposed to be here. It was just this inner knowing that was so unshakable that I needed to pursue it. So then from that point, I got quite involved with the Spiritualist Church, and then began my formal training and development as a medium.
Wow. And so how old were you at this point?
33.
33. And so how long did it take you until you ended up at Arthur Findlay College in England?
Well, I just went this September. So I just went this September and I spent a week there. I'm going back in August. Or I'm going back to England end of August. I'm attending again in September. But all of my training up to that point had been with Tony Stockwell online, and then also with a mentor from the Spiritualist Church. And that was one of the places, Arthur Findlay, that I always wanted to go to, but it's an expensive trip and it's a long way to fly. And I was a little nervous about it. And just I needed to have a few things sorted out before I did that. And it was life-changing, and really excited to go back.
Yeah, it's like Hogwarts or Harry Potter in a sense, with the big castle, and
Yeah.
there are just so many spirits. You walk into that castle, Arthur Findlay College, and you just feel the spirit world. It is.
But you can feel them, but it's not like Hogwarts where you see spirits flying through the air and things like that. I actually found it to be quite mellow, and it was good. And then when I had a private room, and I just said to the spirit world, when I go to AFC, please, please just let me have my sleep. And I never got bothered once. I was like, sweet, this place is awesome. But definitely the presence of the spirit world is so tangible. And it's that energy that allows you to be really vibrant and in the power for like 12 hours a day when you're there.
Yes, absolutely. And it makes me think of a funny story. When I was one of the times I was at Arthur Findlay College, and I had a single room, and I was there with one of my best childhood friends from Sweden, but she had her own room. And we were about ready to get gathered in this big sanctuary where they lecture and do demonstrations and things like that.
Yeah.
And I forgot my phone in my room. So I told my friend, I said, just save my seat. I'm just going to run to the room quickly and get my phone. Put my key in the door, would not open. Put my key in the door, would not open. Took a step back, looked at the number sign above the door. It is my room. I'm thinking, am I on the wrong floor? Why isn't this opening? Looking at my key, it is the right key. Tried again, tried again, tried again. Took a step back, said, okay, I'm going to wait 30 seconds and we're going to try one time. Tried again, didn't open. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to have to go downstairs and ask for help. So I went down to the reception, and this gentleman walked back up with me he put my key in the door and it opened right up. So it was, I mean, you could feel the resistance of, it was almost like somebody was standing on the other side of the door and wouldn't let me get in. It was a crazy experience because there was no reason and there was nobody else there because everybody was already gathered in the big lecture hall. So definitely they're fooling around with you, you know, when you're there. There's just funny things, and people do see spirits there. I've never seen it, but I guess there are certain spirits that live on certain floors that they see.
I've heard of so many stories of people having experiences with, for example, the mother of modern spiritualism, Emma Harding Britton. I've heard stories about her being seen within certain stairwells there inside the main hall there. I never saw any spirits, but I mean, I could feel it. I would say my strongest clair would be definitely the clairsentience. I'm definitely a feeler. I felt their presence, and it's so much excitement that the spirit world has when people go there to learn, to be able to connect with the other world and to discover their mediumistic powers of awareness. The spirit world gets so stoked. They're like, we have more people that are wanting to do this work and learn more about us. And honestly, I think they're just having a big old party.
Yes. Yes, and I've had two experiences where the teacher's father has come in, and you know, we're doing a reading and we're trying to place it with a group, and then the teacher says, "Oh, wait a second, I think that's my dad." And
Isn't
then
that
it has
interesting?
been. Yeah, so it's you know, it's interesting because even their family members come in and help with teaching the students. So let's go back to you. So when you have worked, you said you're a feeler. Have you ever felt like the spirit world touched you, or felt like them touching your hair or your leg, or?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Particularly when I am sitting in the power, just getting myself ready to work before a private sitting, or if I'm doing a demonstration, one of the signs that my guides let me know is they will actually just gently stroke my middle finger. Why is it that finger? I don't know. It's the calling card. I have felt somebody breathing just a gentle breath on my face. I've heard hello. I've heard my name called. I've had physical experiences of being touched, but never did it ever make me feel uncomfortable or nervous, which I think if I didn't have that clairsentience ability, that clear feeling, and just not knowing why I'm actually having this happen, because a feeling gives context to what you're experiencing, right? I think I would probably be nervous, but no, 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 not yet. Fingers crossed.
Do you ever have animals coming to you from the spirit world?
All the time. All the time. I actually grew up on a farm. We had 7 horses. We had all kinds of animals, you know, dogs, chickens, rabbits. We used to have wild deer that ran in our backyard, all kinds of animals. I love animals. And I always say, if I'm ever, you know, lucky enough to, or I don't know if it's lucky enough, but if I do win the lottery, I want to have an animal rescue. Spirit World knows I love animals, and I have them come through all the time. And it's interesting because I just recently did a demonstration online and someone's dog came through and she was shocked. She goes, well, why is she coming through? You had a dog, this description, blah, blah, blah. And I gave the evidence. Well, yeah. I said, well, she has a soul. You know how we use that phrase, you know, animals are like family, or you call them your fur babies or man's best friend. They have souls. They want to come back and keep that connection. And I remember when my husband and I just moved into our condo about 7 years ago when we purchased it. And at that time, we had a pub style table and there were chairs. And I remember coming home from grocery shopping and there was a cat on the bar stool. We didn't have a cat at all. And I go, oh, well, if I don't have to clean a cat box or feed you, you're welcome to stay. And it's interesting because of our building. I'm sure there's many people that have had animals that have passed to the spirit, and they come in from time to time. The I would say probably the most interesting animal, Lottie, that's ever come through would be a horse in a private sitting. And I
Yeah.
just think it's always, always incredible. when these beautiful animals, because they have souls, come through and they can bring not only, evidence that the soul survives bodily death, but their love and their guidance is still there and, applicable and resonates to the person still here. So cool.
Yeah. When you get an animal to come through, do they communicate, giving specific messages, or is it more their presence, or how does that work, considering they don't speak English, or you know what I'm saying, like a human? But
Yeah,
when they
yeah.
communicate, is it, do you still get a specific message telepathically, even if it's from an animal?
Yes, yeah, a lot. Sometimes the animals will come in just to be recognized, to be validated. And then there's other animals that will come through with a specific message for that individual and bringing information about the person's current circumstances and just offering some guidance and support. And it's neat. It's really, really neat. People have a hard time wrapping their head around, how can an animal give guidance for my life? Well, if we recognize that they are a soul being and that their consciousness isn't confined just to that, let's say, that physical vessel of a dog or a horse or, a cat, but that soul is eternal and has a level of consciousness. And if we were to believe in reincarnation, perhaps that soul is a elevated divine being who has had multiple lifetimes, maybe as an animal or not. And with that acquired knowledge that that soul has, shares it with you. I think sometimes we limit how we can receive divine guidance. And I personally like to encourage us to have open minds and open hearts and not limit how the spirit world gives us that information. And so I find a lot in my work too, it's educating people about how things work. And with that understanding, it can bring more openness of mind and heart.
Yeah. So do you think that, so if reincarnation is true, which, I mean, they've done a lot of research on this, there's whole books written about the research that's been going on for probably 50 or 60 years at least. Ian Stevenson has done a lot of research, and these children remember their past lives. They can say, I lived in this different village. These are the names of the people. This is where we live. This is what it looks like. Or they'll take the child there and they'll point out exactly what happened. They've even solved crimes, right? How somebody was murdered in their past life, found the body because the child remembers they were that person in that life. So we know that there is definitely truth to that. Now, the question is, have you ever gotten any kind of evidence of somebody's past life or somebody being in a different body, like an animal in a past life? Has anything ever like that come through in a reading?
No. And I think that in an evidential reading, that type of information shouldn't come through, I would think, in my opinion, because evidential mediumship is different than spiritual mediumship or inspirational mediumship. So, evidential mediumship, the sole purpose is to bring survival evidence, to bring evidence that will help validate that the soul continues to exist beyond bodily death. And so, many people, including myself, believe in past life. However, we're not always able to actually validate and be given or find evidence to validate those experiences. It's more of an emotional connection that we have to these experiences. Now, is it based on fact? That's up for discussion, right? But I think that with evidential mediumship, no, I haven't had that come up. Now, in a psychic reading, or when I've done particularly like a soul to soul reading, there may be some information that comes up, but I would say in my work body, it's pretty rare.
So, so the evidential mediumship, which I know already,
Yeah.
but for the listeners, they might not be aware the difference there. So that's good that you explain that, because you're bringing evidence of this, the survival of the soul. When people schedule a reading with you, what does that typically look like? So you're always going to have people that believe in soul survival. They might have had readings before. they're excited for anybody who's going to come through and give them a message. And then you have the skeptics that have lost someone and they would like to know that the person is okay on the other side. They miss the person terribly, but they don't know if they believe in it or not. And they would like to get, a lot of evidence to come through so that they can trust in the fact that the soul does survive. So what does it look like? What does a typical reading look like, considering it's such a broad span of your client? You're going to have one that doesn't believe in it at all and wants confirmation, and the other one that says, just give me anything. What does it typically look like, a reading? What happens in a reading for people who are new to this and have never had a mediumship reading?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just make a quick comment first. I actually don't mind having skeptics coming in. I've had many that have come in and been very upfront. I'm skeptical and I don't know if I believe in this. But if they can at least come in with an openness to the experience, I find that it doesn't affect the energy when I'm working. And primarily my focus should be, and I do my best, is to keep most of my attention on the spirit world and less about the person who's sitting in front of me. So yeah, I don't mind if I have skeptics. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me because I have a job to do. So what I'd like to do is just get a little bit acquainted with the people. I don't want them to give me any information about themselves, but I just let them know how I work and what to expect in a reading. So I'll describe how I'll get the information and how it works, because right now all of my work is online. I'm doing a lot of traveling, so it works. And people question, well, how does an online reading work? And I tell them that it actually works exactly the same as an in-person reading. Everything is energy, including you and I. So when I begin to move my awareness to the spirit world and to begin to describe information, I'm going to want to hear that individual's voice. And I want them to let me know if the information I share with them makes sense or if it doesn't. One, to let me know if I'm on the right track, or do I need to sort some things out? And then I just want to hear answers or responses like, yes, no, I don't know. I don't want any other information from that. So when I hear their voice, it creates an energetic link. That energetic link allows me to tune into the atmosphere around them and connect to those in the spirit world that gather close. Lots of people have this idea or perception that all of the spirit people are with the medium, and that's not the case. The loved ones who step forward in the reading are actually with the recipient. They're not with me. My spirit team that helps me when I do my readings, they're with me. So when I'm hearing my client's voice and hearing those verbal responses, that helps strengthen the link and that connection between myself, them, and those in the other world. And through that experience, I will just start to describe what I'm seeing, feeling, hearing, and relay that on to them, or to them rather. And so for the majority of my work with a client, I will feel a lot through clairsentience. And sometimes through that process of feeling through clairsentience, my mind, or the human mind, likes to rationalize or put a image to what we're feeling or experiencing. So sometimes I'll have images that appear. I do work clairvoyantly sometimes, but majority through clairsentience. And so I'll just begin to describe that information. And through that, it tells a story, and it tells a story of who that individual was in their life, what they enjoyed doing, perhaps how they passed to the spirit world, the relationship that they had with the sitter, guidance and support that they want to offer. Maybe it's a parent or a spouse or a child or a friend that's stepping forward to say, I'm okay. Let go of any feelings of guilt or, anger, whatever that may be. Because remember, they're still people. They just don't have bodies anymore. So they still have relationships with those people who are still here on the earth plane. Sometimes I kind of feel like I'm a therapist a little bit, not just a medium. I'm right in the middle of a lot of healing that can take place in the private sitting. And I find that so many people feel relaxed, comforted, they've received closure. And then there's people who have gotten exactly what they need, but it wasn't closure that they were looking for. It was the validation that even though my loved one has died, what we on earth call died, their soul is still very much alive. They're still around. They're still giving me the same guidance and support. They're still cheeky. They're still cracking jokes. They're still, suggesting I do things that I don't really care to, like rearrange your furniture, do this. I've got a grandmother that likes to do that from the other side. She has not changed, right? But they're still people. And through my mediumship readings, I like to normalize the communication. It is not something that is for a chosen few. I am no more special than anybody else. I've just developed my abilities to a degree that I can bring through clear and specific evidence that validates the soul continues to live, but anybody can do that. And I find that there's some people that get a bit teary, but it's more about uplifting and more of a joyful experience and a healing experience as to one where some people are actually scared to come to a reading because they think they're just going to be completely devastated or terrible information is going to come through and they're just going to be a hot mess once they leave the session. I go, no, it shouldn't be that way. And people are usually quite surprised when their sitting is, finished with me and they go, wow, that was like really normal and comfortable and they enjoyed themselves. And I said, well, of course, would you not enjoy your time with your loved one? They're still here? Well, usually. So it's about just recognizing that the two worlds are still very much intertwined. And I really enjoy what I do. And like I said, sometimes I feel like I'm a therapist in between some of the two worlds. I go, oh my gosh, I did not know it was going to be like that when I endeavored to develop these abilities.
So when you have, when you say therapist, sometimes you feel like a therapist.
Yeah.
Sometimes, people have had a hard life. Maybe there was abuse in the family and they don't, they're a little bit afraid of reconnecting with that person because they were terrible towards them during their life. And have you ever seen somebody who has been in an abusive type situation, but then when they reconnect and the spirit comes through, what do you typically see in situations like that?
Well, what'll happen is, and I've actually just had one recently, there was a parent and child situation. The parent was in the spirit world. The child is now an adult and has a lot of trauma from their experiences with their parent. Their parent stepped forward and gave me enough information so that that my client knew who the person was, but without rehashing all of the details, because that can actually be very traumatizing as well. So I think that's another thing that is important in our work, is that we use discernment. We want to be able to get the point across without causing any harm. And the client, I could feel their reaction. And I said, are you open to having this communication? And they were. So when I feel something kind of very sensitive like that, I'll ask them, are you open to hearing from that person? I'll never force somebody to hear from someone in the spirit world that they're not comfortable with. They don't want to. Again, it's about healing. That's mediumship at its core. Its purpose is healing. And that parent came through, finally admitted their wrongs, took personal responsibility, and gave very specific details about why they did what they did, why they didn't do what they perhaps should have or could have, and what they're doing now on the other side to make things right, to make amends. Now, is that a cure for the client's trauma that they've experienced? No, but it does add an element of healing to their soul. And again, healing is something that we're responsible for. Even if we've been traumatized by someone, we're responsible for how we deal with that. And it was a beautiful reunion between parent and child. And you could feel a bit of the resistance and the anger just lessen, the intensity of it. And I thought, well, that's a start. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just beautiful when healing takes place like that. And can anyone be a medium? You said something about, anybody can do
Mhm.
this. What is your belief on that? Could any of the listeners that are thinking, well, I would like to learn how to do that? What advice do you have to them?
Anybody can learn mediumship. Like I mentioned earlier, you do not have to be a special person. You do not have to be born with a certain social status or financial background, anything. It doesn't matter. As long as your heart is wanting to develop mediumship, can I say for the right reasons? And that could be discovery of self, beginning to understand why you have these abilities and what the purposes of what they're for. Is it to help bring proof of survival? Is it to help comfort hearts? Is it for you to reunite with your own loved ones on the other side? And I feel that anybody can learn to develop it. Now, is everybody going to be a platform medium? Not necessarily. Is everybody meant to be a platform medium? Not necessarily. But can everybody with formal training learn to bring through clear and specific evidential information? Absolutely. And I let people know in my private sittings too that just because I'm that middle person, which is what medium means, between them and their loved ones does not mean that they're not able to connect with their loved ones outside of a private sitting. We can still connect with the spirit world, whether that be through mediumship development or recognizing signs and symbols that our loved ones let us know or provide us to validate that their soul is with us in that exact moment. And I think people, when they get really excited about the idea of developing mediumship, they think it's something that is going to happen spontaneously or quickly. And I've also heard some people comment that they're a natural medium. I'm not sure what that means, but we all have natural mediumistic abilities. They need to be developed so that we understand them. And then how to refine them so we understand what the information is so we can pass it on. Because if, as a medium, we don't understand the evidence, our client, our recipient, our partner, they're going to have no idea what we're saying. And with mediumship development, it takes time, it takes practice. There's going to be times where you are marvelous and fantastic and bringing through incredible evidence. Then there's going to be times where you may struggle with even making a link with the spirit world. And it really takes dedication, perseverance, and most importantly, patience.
And do you teach any courses for people that would like to learn, to get more involved in this?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. So I teach 8-week and 12-week courses. I like to keep my classes small. That way I can offer my students more mentorship, more one-on-one attention. And with that, I've actually just got a group that started 3 weeks ago. One lady has never connected with the spirit world before, but she's always been interested in it, never recognized their feeling or their presence as they gather close. By week 2, she was able to, and I'm so proud of her, she's able to sense the spirit when they gather close, be able to tell the gender, be able to provide the relationship, and to be able to bring through cause of passing within 2 weeks. It's incredible. So yes, everybody can learn to develop mediumship, and I do offer classes throughout the year. And I get so excited when I see people make those connections with the spirit world, because those are connections that will last a lifetime. When you open yourself up to the other world, the way that you view life, your perception of life after death, your perception of just how you show up in this physical life changes. And it really helps inspire you. And then it's this beautiful gift that keeps on giving. When people see the changes within us, they go, well, what are you doing? And then they're interested and they're intrigued and they think, maybe I'll give it a go. And it's amazing. I love it.
So if people would like to learn more about you or book a reading with you or take one of your classes, how do they find you?
They can go to my website at mediumcourtneydawson.com. I'm also on Instagram at mediumcourtneydawson.
Well, that's easy. So mediumcourtneydawson.com, and I will put that link in the podcast notes. So it's going to be easy. Just click on it, and go find Courtney. And I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the meaning of life?
The meaning of life is about the discovery of self.
Love it. Love it. And any special messages to the listeners?
Allow yourself to do what your heart inspires you to do and be your biggest fan.
Love it. Such good advice. I want to thank you so much, Courtney, for taking the time to be a guest on the podcast today. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.